Man, I gotta say, I love me some bad movies. I think sometimes everyone can just do with a grueling, ironic watch into something truly disastrous. And right now, we are in the center of such a disaster. Just last week, we had the American release of the Playmobil Movie underperforming so badly, it looks like my own YouTube video on it could have gotten somewhat similar viewership numbers over there. Meanwhile, this weekend, we had the double upload of Cats and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. You know, I was initially a little unsure which of the two to make a video on. They release like one day apart from each other and only have one Monday slot to share around. But it looks like all things gotta work out, as both are just complete disasters in their own way. So today we're going to be doing a double mashup of both films simultaneously because that's just the season of films right now. The internet is on fire over heated debates and smackdowns on these two films, and I think I'm going to miss this discourse soon enough. So I rocked up to the cinemas early in the morning for my first ironic watch of Cats, and spoilers, it's not good. Are you really surprised? I actually kind of was. I came into this film with a giant grain of salt. We've all already seen the trailers, and the internet's opinion was overtly clear from the start there. The CGI was weird, and the overly dancey motions felt all the more cringy and unfitting. And to a degree, I figured I could get over that. The biggest issue this film really seemed to have was that it was being over-the-top artsy. The director clearly had a vision that just didn't mesh with what the general public would have wanted for a vision. But surely, that would be where the faults end. The stylistic choices were just weird, the presentation would still be good, you just have to stomach the extra flair. Not true. This film is an unmitigated disaster throughout from all sorts of angles, from that stylistic choice to its story, pacing, dialogue, soundtrack. All of it has major flaws that make for even more of a great drinking game on the second run through. But before we dig our claws further into Cats, let's hop on over to a galaxy far away with the film industry's second great disaster. Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker. Man, is this film a full course meal, both within the core runtime and in the debate surrounding it. The film on its own is awfully divisive on many fronts. While I was waiting between screenings, I heard many people coming out of the earlier Star Wars screenings delighted, whilst online you can find all sorts of hatred on practically everything it brought up. Either way, with all of the juggling this film is trying to do, it's a disaster one way or another. Clearly having bitten off way more than it can chew and trying its best to satisfy absolutely everyone all at the same time. I personally found myself able to enjoy the film. I just kinda shut off my brain and watched this expensive sci-fi flick. It was cheesy in places, heaped with references, and if I don't think too hard about the logic pieces, it was enjoyable. But it wasn't all good of a Star Wars film, especially when knowing the outer context. The first disaster to start this snowballing result was creating a trilogy with no overarching plan, and really, just from that, it was pretty unsalvageable. Second of all, it was trying to end off 42 years of movie continuity, which is already enough of a disaster, but then as a secondary objective, it was overly manipulated from its original vision into this diluted version of damage control, taking away from The Last Jedi as much as possible and siding with the fans only to create a more complicated storyline. It was so afraid of screwing up that it ended up screwing up. So let's begin with something of a positive note to start on for both of these films: the soundtracks. Star Wars has always had a great orchestral backing track, and it's much the same here. I mean, the music they used this time for the trailers is just top tier stuff. I love it. And Cats, well, the positivity ends there, really. Sure, I guess musical music is subjective or whatever, but even still, in this particular adaptation of the songs, I just didn't like them. The visuals always ended up trashing the enjoyment of each song, and on top of that, the actual instrumental parts are mind-numbing. The film starts off literally on some doofy, futuristic synth music that sounds like it's from the 80s that only acts to highlight this Cats adaptation as one massive joke. Am I seriously meant to take this seriously? On top of that, you know the main theme motif you heard in the trailers? Well, I hope you like that motif because it shows up in pretty much every song in this godforsaken hour-and-a-half long film. Constantly. That trailer, by the way, is also even more hot trash because it literally spoiled the entire plot for me through its song choice. Sure, the musical is awfully old by this point and I probably should already know the plot, but I didn't, okay? I'm a theatre kid, not a musical theatre kid. The trailer has this big, powerful, emotive song, and when a character only sings it shyly near the start of the film and then stops, it didn't take much to realize that they'd get their big, confident ending with a bigger version of the same song at the end, which is basically the climax of the film. Let's move on to pacing. But before we do, why not consider subscribing? My video views are just about recovering after a debatable copyright claim got through, so why not join me on the up and up? YouTube just keeps suggesting these videos out to non-subscribers, but I can see you if you're not subscribed. So, pacing. Star Wars is a mess. Consistently leaping from plot point to plot point as fast as possible to wrap up 42 years of cinema in under 3 hours. The first 5 minutes are particularly warping everywhere, and there's no real moment to sit on a single thought and let it soak in for emotional weight. It's just fast-paced sci-fi action all the way through, and Cats is, The layout was pretty formulaic. Meeting a new cat, then singing a song which goes on twice as long as you'd want since they're literally just singing the same lyrics a second time, and then move on to meet another cat. It's slow, and you get it. They really milk every opportunity, and the ending especially just keeps on going when it had no right not to be done like 10 minutes ago. But let's forget the formatting. How's about the actual dialogue of these two films? Oh god, with Cats, there's barely any there. Cats has a kind of Les Mis syndrome, where there's basically no spoken dialogue. 90% of speech is told through song, and oftentimes feels like it's just there to be there. There's little genuine connection between characters in a scene, and it's just seeing more of the spectacle and following the story beats. Not too dissimilar to Star Wars too, with just so much trying to be unraveled so quickly that there's little for good dialogue. It's all mostly just exposition and generic word fodder, which to some is fine. If you want an easy watch surface level action film, then you got it. I mean, I could enjoy it. When Rey was sad, she said the sad words. Beyond the basics were references, which while I'm sure most fans just rolled their eyes at with the laziness of it, I kind of enjoyed it. I don't know, my brain was shut off, and seeing it still somewhat be connected to Star Wars at least helped make it feel like a Star Wars film. But clearly, it was skewing a little more to that generic audience type who are easy to please. If you think too hard, you'll be disappointed, because there definitely could have been more interesting directions to have taken the dialogue in certain places with certain characters, but too little time to develop it. Alright, we've done enough not thinking. Let's hit these disasters where it hurts most, the logic. Cats makes no goddamn sense. Like, I'm genuinely lost. Who is the target demographic for this film? Is it supposed to be someone who's familiar with the musical already? Because this film does nothing to explain the logic of the world of Cats. Everything just happens. So the cats are personified as humans, right? Fine, I can get behind that, sure. There's a gang of Jellicle cats. Okay, are there any other gangs? Alrighty. Magic cats. Apparently that's a thing, but it's a trait only known to 2 cats and is never really explained. There's just cats with magic sometimes. Is it a breed? Is it learned? Why do some cats wear clothes and others don't? Like sure, fur coats, that makes sense, but why do some just wear shoes? Why is only one a tap dancer? How does this whole new life thing work? Am I missing an allegory here? Whatever, let's just go to something that makes a bit more sense. Star Wars. Oh wait! That doesn't piece together either! Kind of. I mean, I'm sure there's all sorts of cheese you could kind of fit in to try to explain the pieces together, but really, this is quite an unattached Star Wars film that struggles to strand everything together. The fact that Palpatine is here is cool and hype-inducing for action fans, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's the best that could have been done after Snoke, I guess. But like, Palpatine wanted Rey alive, so he ordered Snoke about who wanted to kill Rey. Makes sense. How he's alive isn't fully explained, it just starts on the opening crawl. Rey being super OP powered is just the expansion doing its thing. And how all sorts of other elements come together just does. It's fun. It's a fun film with enjoyable generic moments, but logically, it just doesn't hold up, because it doesn't have the foundation of the series holding it up. It works too hard to retcon the mistakes of Last Jedi, instead of running with it to tell a cohesive, logical story. Presentation! We've kind of dabbled on elements of the presentation of these films already, but there's still more to bring down on them, so I will here. Cats is presented in such a strange, illogical fashion. I know I skimmed over it earlier and we all saw it months ago, but oh, these CGI bodies on real human faces just does not sit well at all. And my goodness, is it inconsistent a lot of the time. Sometimes it feels like the face is too small for the head, or other times it's just too big. Sometimes the eyes are really small, yet the mouth is enlarged, and overall it just seems to fit in the horrible uncanny valley. And then add on to that the perspective of the other set pieces around it. They're cats, right? So they're smaller than humans. That's fine, I can get behind that. But the actual sizing of them compared to everything else around them just doesn't fit most of the time and seems to be inconsistently changing constantly. When they're in a giant kitchen, it kind of works. I get how it's supposed to look, it's all fine from there. But then there's other times, like when they're tap dancing along a railroad, that they look way too tiny to what you'd expect cats to be on a railroad to look like, only making them seem like weird musical alien things. Plus, I guess this is kind of an obvious thing, but seems to be missed out on the art direction here, these cats are standing on their hind legs a lot. It's not what they always do, but they are humanoid by design. And cats standing on their hind legs are taller than cats, you know? So really, their sizing should at the very least be some bit bigger to accommodate for the fact that they're stretching their bodies vertically. But instead, it often looks like they took the height of a horizontal cat and pasted that height as being the height for these CGI cats, despite them standing up vertically. All around, it just looks alien. At least Star Wars doesn't have that mess. What it does have is a generic cheesy flick with a pretty basic presentation. There's a lot of Star Wars wipes, the views are alright, but it's mostly all face value stuff. I was too distracted with all the spectacle to soak in the visuals, you know? Plus, I was trying to piece it all together. So let's push in deeper to individual characters, shall we? Cats clearly has the important characters and the less so. Find the cat protagonist in the crowd. But even then, the main cast ensemble is bloated with a lot of characters. And this is more of a dig on the actual original story, it seems, but this adaptation is really doing it no favors. The protagonist kitten is bland and just naively going on with her surroundings. There's a bulk of main gang cats who do very little and yet act like important characters, like the guy that I guess just represents all of the cats in general opinions on stuff, so everything has to interact with him first. There's the political skeptical girl cat who just growls 3 times and calls it a day, and then there's the magic cat who gets the most development and screen time and actually feels like a character for once. Then there's the slew of big name cats to be chosen who appear for one song and are then moved on. There's the queen cat who does the judging, the sad cat in the street, the evil cat bad guy and his 3 minions, 2 of which were established earlier, and one seems to appear out of nowhere and then disappears at that exact same pace. I have little connection to these cats and merely know their personalities. It's the 2 basic 40-year-old humor cats and the one who didn't deserve any of this cat. But beyond that, these cats are a bore. Star Wars at least doesn't have that, but it does have its own problems, like how Rose was pushed to the side because of the backlash of The Last Jedi, how Rey is boosted into next level powered up, Finn isn't given any kind of finishing arc on his Stormtrooper origins, or the thing he wanted to say to Rey, though maybe it was that he might be force sensitive because of all the feelings he was having throughout the film. There's all sorts of other things to pick apart about this movie, and the characters only get more convoluted the more you think about it. Kylo Ren was great though, I think we can all agree on that. So now we're going to talk about the big moments. This video so far hasn't been overtly spoilery, but now it's about to be. These last points are all spoiler based, but you probably already know all you want to know. You've had a whole weekend after all. So cats. A lot of the moments that there are, I kind of want to forget, and really things just happen. I don't remember any particular highlights. When I saw Ian McKellen at first, I was relieved that he was just a shy background character, and then he got his own segment about how modern theatre isn't as good as it once was, which felt a little self-aware. Then there was James Corden and Rebel Wilson doing their same basic shtick. And then there was a crazy long segment about not being able to do the magic needed to save the day. It was all just kinda, I'm not the target demographic. But I struggled to piece together who even is the target demographic. Meanwhile, on the Star Wars side of things, there were loads of moments. Honestly, I've been hearing a lot of people saying that there were no big cool moments, but I beg to differ. There were all sorts, although some may just not have read it as positively as others. When Rey and Kylo Ren are force fighting over a carrier, that's pretty cool. Even cooler is when Rey is so powerful she accidentally shoots lightning out of her hands. Don't think about the logic of it. And accidentally killing everybody and thinking Chewie too was a powerful moment of shock, a great tragedy. And speaking of death, there's a handful of them, and it's kind of a negative point actually. The fact that Chewie is alive, I'm happy with, but the reveal's so soon after that he's not dead, I might have liked to see a little bit later on for more emotional impact. The fact that he was just on another carrier is bad writing though. C-3PO dies, or has his memory wiped, until he doesn't. I feel playing with death so much like this is taken away from the impact of the story, at least a little bit. Han Solo appears before Ben for a great dialogue piece between the two of them, which pretty much everyone agrees is basically the best part of the whole film. Leia kinda has a bit of an anti-climax, but People from across the galaxy all come in for the final fight for the Resistance. That's pretty cool, albeit a little generic. And then Rey versus Palpatine. That had all sorts going for it, but we'll tackle that in a mo. First, let's pull back from iconic moments and go to the story as a whole, because while there is room for praises, both are still awfully flawed throughout. Cats, for example, is just slow and formulaic and spectacle, and I can't tell if the original musical is a fault here too. Surely all these bloated songs came from somewhere, and yet it just keeps going with all sorts of exposition and bland storytelling. The good magic cat is needed against the bad magic cat. Wow. The clear, obvious choice for a new life is chosen. Wow. By the end of the film, Dame Judi Dench talks to the camera and tells us that cats are most certainly not dogs. Meow? Sorry for the dead meme, but I was just trying to follow along with the random tangent this movie decided to go on. And Star Wars, while I've said plenty already, it continues to be incredibly bloated and stitched together purely just by how lucky everything turned out to be. Seriously, this is bad writing throughout. The gang go to a desert festival that happens like once every 42 years for their very first step. How convenient! They luckily fall into the same trap as the guy they're tailing. They luckily find his dagger with a luck translation on the side. We luckily know a guy who can translate it, and Finn has a million lucky feelings about which way to divert the plot next. Rey luckily survives all sorts of perilous journeys by herself, abandoning her friends for pure determination and luck alone. There were a million things ready to go wrong for the crew in The Rise of Skywalker, but none of it happens because all of these people are astronomically lucky in order to wrap up everything as fast as possible. It passes, it works well enough to reach the finish line, but at what cost? An okay action film, but a terrible Star Wars film to add to the established continuity. So now at the end, we reach our final point, the ending. Cats has a cat be chosen. The sun rises, and as they rise to the heaven literally, they sing outside, teaching the audience how to look after a cat for an incredibly long amount of time. Also, the bad cat tries to climb onto the floating chandelier air balloon to the heavens, and as we all know, cats can't climb, right? So he falls and loses his magical powers. Somehow. And the chosen cat flies to the clouds. Right. As for Star Wars, they continue to do what they've been doing for almost 3 hours now, stamping on loose ends and just racing to the finish. It's the end of 9 cinematic movies? Better upgrade the scale again. How's about a whole fleet, each with planet-destroying gear? Yeah, that sounds over the top enough. The Knights of Ren being built up all this time? Yeah, they're minor inconveniences. Rey being built up as totally going to the dark side? No, she's sticking Jedi, but hey, she's a Palpatine. Rey versus Palpatine? I actually didn't hate it all too much. The moment of Ben and Rey connecting and passing the lightsaber was grand to see paid off, and Palpatine using lightning powers to EMP every ship in the sky was also pretty powerful for a time. But then the climax... oh... See, from the moment I saw Rey shoot lightning for the first time, I was expecting it to pay off again in a much grander light. I was waiting for that moment, and it never came to pass. Palpatine tries to zap Rey, who deflects it with a single lightsaber. Is that possible? Can't Palp redirect another beam with his other hand? Oh no, she's got 2 lightsabers in a cross now! Truly the blade of evil's bane right here! And with 2, she can push it forwards and melt him away. Which is cool, I guess. But like, what if she had 1 lightsaber in one hand and then focused her energy to beam out that lightning again with her other hand against Palpatine, destroying him with his own power, and being the embodiment of the balance of the Force, using both sides of the Force together, since it's her power, not evil power. Oh, also, apparently all Sith live in Palpatine, and all Jedi live in Rey now, and all sorts of other things were introduced and completely undeveloped at this final step. Also, Palp wanted to die to have his spirit seep into Rey, so Rey solves the problem by killing Palp. But he can't transmute now because he restored his own powers, I guess? Maybe I would have preferred if Rey went evil after all. Or give me more Lightning Ray, perhaps. Oh, and also Ben and Ray kiss. I don't know my thoughts on that. They clearly have a bond beyond no other, but Finn is not abusive. He's the proper happy friend, but he's got his own harem going on, it seems. And I guess they really want poetry of Skywalkers are incestual. I don't know. Either way, the real ending is Rey going back to the origins of it all, desolate and almost lost, burying the lightsabers and announcing to a random passing merchant that she is now a Skywalker, wrapping together the incestuous arc for us all. Kinda spoiled by the title there though. I figured it was gonna be the whole we are all Skywalker thing, you know, a la the end of Last Jedi, but nope, that's all to be retconned instead. Disney films. When it comes to endings, Cats had too little to say for too long, and Star Wars had too much under too little time. And while I found myself able to enjoy both to a certain degree, with a certain mindset going in, one way or another, both of these films make for this weekend to be the great double disaster weekend of 2019. Unless there was another. I can't remember. This is the one people will think of. Ironically enough, I loved it. I'm an anti-hero consumer, I guess, and bad films can be just as sweet as the gold mines we were hoping to consume instead. Well, at least Palpatine said do it one last time. My name's been Dazz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit. I really enjoyed this weekend. I love dumpster fire films. Also, that's fun because I got to see Dame Judi Dench get an honourable doctorate for arts at my university. So, now she's a cat. God help her.